Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Teacher, and today we'll be reading Anne Frank's diary. Anne Frank was 11 years old in 1940 when the armies of Adolf Hitler invaded Holland, where she lived with her parents and her older sister. Hitler was the Nazi ruler of Germany. He was a fanatic in his ideas, and he hated certain groups of people, especially Jewish people. He planned to do away with all the Jewish people in Europe. The Frank family was Jewish. They were frightened and appalled when Hitler took over Holland. So, this was a very scary time for Holland, especially. In 1940, right, the armies of Adolf Hitler invaded Holland. So, Adolf Hitler was not a good person, right? He was the Nazi ruler of Germany and he hated a lot of kinds of people, especially Jewish people. So, he wanted to do away with, he wanted to get rid of all Jewish people. So, of course, the Frank family, who was Jewish, was very afraid. In terror, Anne's family went into hiding. They moved into a small space hidden behind a bookshelf in Mr. Frank's office. Another family joined them. Altogether, 8 people occupied the crowded space. They depended on brave friends who brought them food and news of the outside world. They hoped their stay would be temporary, and every day they longed to hear that Hitler had been defeated. But after 2 years, they were still in hiding. So they were able to hide in Mr. Frank, the father of the family's office. And then another family joined them in hiding. So there was 8 people in a very small space. So they really needed their friends who were not hiding to come and bring them news and bring them food, or they wouldn't have been able to stay there. They hoped it was going to end and be temporary, but for 2 years they stayed in that same space together. From 1942 to 1944, Anne Frank kept a diary. She wrote about the things that happened and their impact on her life. Although life in these cramped surroundings was very dreary, Anne's diary is always interesting. In it, she reveals her deepest thoughts and feelings. She complains of the isolation they all experienced, and she writes of their hopes of one day leading a normal life. No matter how dejected she felt, she always made the effort to keep the diary up to date. Being discovered by the Germans was Anne Frank's greatest fear. Any unusual sound from outside, a slamming door, heavy footsteps, German voices, could be a sign of danger. The little group had the use of a toilet, but they could not flush it during the day. Someone nearby might hear it and suspect that people were hiding in there. So Anne had a diary. She wrote all her thoughts and feelings. So she was in the middle of going through this very horrible thing. But in her diary, even today, we can read about what she was feeling and what her family was going through. But she was very afraid that the Germans would find their family and their friends and would take them away. So much so that they could not even flush the toilet during the daytime. World War II ended in 1945, so 5 years later after the army had come to Holland. Hitler's armies were routed in the east by the Russians and in the west by the Americans and the British. But the war's end came too late for Anne Frank. The Germans had found the family's hiding place the year before. So in 1944, they were found. Anne and most of her family were killed. We would not know of Anne's tragic story if not for her diary. She left it behind when she was taken away, but family and friends found it and saved it. Anne's father managed to survive the war. When he returned home, his family was gone. Only his daughter's diary was left. He published the diary to share her story with the world. So it was a very tragic end, right? Everyone in the family, except for Mr. Frank, the father, had been killed during that time when they were captured. But they found Anne's diary and they published it so many people can hear her story now. All right. So thank you for reading with me today. We do have links related to each article. If you would like the link for this story here, you can find it down in the description below.